Can you imagine the chaos that would ensue if the arteries that pump goods throughout our nation suddenly stopped? That's precisely what occurred during the historic dock worker strike of 2024, when the flow of imports and exports ground to a halt, sending shockwaves through the entire economy. In the fall of 2024, a perfect storm was brewing on the nation's waterfronts. Contract negotiations between the powerful International Longshoremen's Association, representing 45,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas, and the United States Maritime Alliance, the consortium of port operators and shipping companies, had reached an impasse. What were the main points? Wages and the role of automation.
We're out here picketing for better wages and automation protection, and we're willing to stay out here as long as it takes to get what we want.
And tell us a little bit about what we are seeing in terms of negotiations. Anything that you're hearing that we could see folks back at the table soon?
I'm hearing it's a little bit slow right now, but we have all the faith in the world in our international president. These men and women here in Baltimore, we back him 100%, and we feel like he'll get us the deal that we need.
And what are you looking for in some more specifics? Obviously, wages, automation at the front lines of this negotiation.
We're looking for a little bit of improvement to our health care, a little bit of improvement to our container royalty, and jurisdiction protections, as well as automation protections against fully automated terminals and semi-automation.
The union demanded significant pay increases, some as high as 77% to keep up with soaring inflation. They also sought greater input on the implementation of automation technologies, fearing job losses. Meanwhile, the employers initially offered a 50% wage hike over the contract's life, but were adamant about introducing more automation to boost efficiency and competitiveness. As talks broke down, the stage was set for a confrontation with far-reaching consequences. On October 1st, 2024, the dock workers walked off the job, initiating a strike that would bring 14 major ports to a standstill and disrupt over 50% of the nation's imports and exports. The potential impact was staggering. Experts warned that a prolonged strike could cost the U.S. economy billions of dollars per day, leading to widespread shortages and price hikes on everyday goods from groceries to automobiles. The ripple effects would be felt across the entire supply chain, affecting retailers, manufacturers, and consumers alike. But what drove these dock workers, the backbone of America's maritime trade, to take such a drastic step? The answer lies in their unwavering pursuit of a fair deal that would secure their livelihoods and protect their futures. At the heart of the union's demands was a call for wages that could keep pace with the relentless march of inflation. These hardworking men and women, who toiled day and night to keep the nation's supply chains moving, found themselves falling behind as the cost of living continued to soar. A staggering 77% wage increase was on the table, a figure that may seem eye-popping at first glance, but one that underscored the dire need to preserve their standard of living. However, their fight extended beyond just dollars and cents. The specter of automation loomed large, casting a shadow of uncertainty over their futures. As technological advancements promised greater efficiency, the dock workers feared that their jobs could be sacrificed on the altar of progress.
No contract! No word!
As dock workers join the picket lines, one word is top of mind.
Our main focus right now is automation.
Automation. We can't have automation.
At least 25,000 union workers at 14 ports from Massachusetts to Texas are now demanding higher wages and job protections against automation, which they say threatens their industry. What are the effects of automation here?
Automation leads ultimately to a significant reduction in operating costs as well as efficiency at the ports.
Automation eliminated more than 1,000 full-time roles at the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles between 2020 and 2021.
But on the other side of the negotiating table sat the employers. While the union's demands for higher wages seemed reasonable on the surface, the employers argued that such steep increases would place an untenable burden on their operations. Their initial offer of a 50% wage hike over the life of the contract, though substantial, reflected a delicate balancing act between fair compensation and fiscal prudence. Yet the true crux of the matter lay in the issue of automation. To the employers, the adoption of cutting-edge technologies was not merely a matter of efficiency, it was a matter of survival. In an era where ports around the world were rapidly embracing automation, the maritime companies saw it as a necessary step to remain competitive and maintain their foothold in the global supply chain. The employers painted a picture of a future where automation would streamline operations, reduce costs, and ultimately benefit both parties. However, their vision clashed with the union's fears of job losses and the erosion of hard-won labor protections. And so, on October 1st, 2024, the unthinkable happened. The dock workers laid down their tools, and the mighty engines that drove America's maritime trade ground to a halt. What followed was a scene of chaos and disruption that few could have anticipated. Like a body deprived of oxygen, the nation's ports began to suffocate as the strike took hold. From the bustling terminals of New York and New Jersey to the vital gateways of Savannah and Houston, the flow of goods came to an abrupt stop. Massive container ships, laden with cargo from every corner of the globe, found themselves stranded at anchor, their precious loads left to languish in the open waters. Within days, the backlog of vessels waiting to unload their wares had swelled to unprecedented levels, creating a maritime traffic jam of epic proportions. And as the ships idled, the consequences began to ripple outward, like a pebble tossed into a still pond. For industries reliant on the steady stream of imports, the strike was a gut punch. Perishable goods like the beloved banana or the succulent seafood catch found themselves trapped in limbo, their freshness slowly ebbing away with each passing hour. Grocery store shelves, once brimming with an abundance of choices, began to look alarmingly bare. From the big box behemoths to the mom-and-pop shops that lined Main Street, the specter of shortages loomed large. But the true threat extended far beyond mere inconvenience. As the flow of goods slowed to a trickle, the delicate balance of supply and demand was thrown into disarray, setting the stage for a perfect storm of price hikes. Everyday essentials, from the groceries that graced our tables to the automobiles that ferried us to and from, suddenly became more expensive, straining the budgets of households across the nation. In households across America, the specter of shortages and rising prices prompted a wave of panic buying unlike anything seen since the early days of the pandemic. Consumers, fearing empty shelves and dwindling supplies, descended upon stores in droves, stockpiling essentials and contributing to the very scarcity they sought to avoid. But the public's reaction was merely a symptom of a deeper malaise, a growing sense of frustration and disillusionment with the powers that be. As the strike wore on, fingers began to point, and the blame game took center stage. Consumers, already battered by years of economic uncertainty, directed their ire at the dock workers, accusing them of holding the nation's well-being hostage for their own gain. Just when it seemed that the nation was teetering on the brink of an economic abyss, a glimmer of hope emerged. After days of intense negotiations and mounting public pressure, the union and the employers agreed to a tentative deal that would see dock workers receive a 62% wage increase over the course of the 6-year contract.
Sources telling CNBC that under this tentative deal, workers will see a near 62% wage hike over the course of 6 years. The union, remember, had originally asked for 77%. This increase would potentially raise the top longshoreman's wage to just over $63 an hour at the end of that 6-year deal. That's an increase from $39 an hour. Now, NBC News has reached out to the union for any more details, but have not heard back. Now, President Biden also reacting to this deal, applauding the news, applauding both sides for coming together to reopen these ports, stating that Thursday's tentative deal represents critical progress toward a strong contract.
While falling short of the union's initial demands, the agreement represented a significant victory for the workers, ensuring that their paychecks would keep pace with the ever-rising cost of living. And so, after 3 days of disruption, the dock workers began to trickle back to their posts, ready to resume the vital task of keeping the nation's supply chains flowing. But even as the cranes and forklifts roared back to life, it was clear that this was merely a temporary reprieve, a pause in a larger battle that would continue to shape the future of work and the delicate balance between progress and preservation. For now, though, the nation could breathe a little easier, secure in the knowledge that the worst had been averted, at least for the time being.